Hello, today we're starting in southern Oklahoma, and we're going to end up somewhere kind of in the northern half of Oklahoma. We're going to do a small town, downtown video where we visit 10 incorporated towns, population 5,000 or less, and we rank them, and at the end of the video I'll give you my rankings. You keep track and see if our rankings agree. We stay on the main street of downtown for the most part, see if there's any historic structures, and have a nice little trip from the south to the north. And we're on Highway 81, pretty much going to be on 81 the entire trip. At the end we're going to go just a little bit off, but be pretty close to 81. We're starting down here near kind of, I guess you'd say, Texas, a little not too far from Texas, down here in the southern part of Oklahoma. And so let's go ahead and get to our first town and head north. Marlow is our first town here in Stevens County, population 4,385. Dr. Williamson Marlow and his wife Martha Jane, who was a relative of Daniel Boone, first established a homestead in the area during the 1880s. He was somewhat of a nomad. Dr. Marlow provided medical treatment to many of the settlers in this portion of the Indian Territory and to many cowboys driving up the cattle on the Chisholm Trail. In 1888, 5 sons of the Marlow family were falsely accused of horse stealing, and after 4 brothers were arrested, one escaped back to Indian Territory. On January 19, 1889, while being transported to Weatherford, the brothers were ambushed by a mob near Graham, Texas. 2 were killed, 2 were wounded, and they both fought back and escaped. The mob members were eventually prosecuted. The judge, McCormick, later praised the Marlows' bravery as a remarkable act. The Sons of Katie Elder, an American Western film, uses concepts from a book, The Life of the Marlows, about the Marlow brothers. The town struggled with racial tensions during the Jim Crow era and was known as a sundown town. And former world record holder in the pole vault, Joe Dial, is from Marlow, and I actually know Joe, so that's pretty interesting. Fun fact. Population peaked in 1980 at 5,000, pretty much grew steadily until then, has dropped off a little bit, lost a little over 600 down to its current population of 4,385. Rush Springs is in Grady County, population 997. The Wichita people established a village about 1850 near some springs on Rush Creek. The present-day town of Rush Springs later developed about 4 miles northwest of that point. Cattlemen watered their herds of cattle, and they were driving north from Texas to Kansas on the Chisholm Trail, which passed to the east of here. 1871, supplies bound for Fort Sill and Lawton were brought through Rush Springs. Post office was called Parr in 1883 when the Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific Railway completed its line through Rush Springs. In 1892, the post office relocated into the town near the railroad. It was incorporated in 1898, and at that time it was located in Pickens County, Chickasaw Nation. Population gradually rose throughout the years, peaked in 1980 at 1,451. Since then, it's gone down a little bit, especially in the last census of 2020. Next up is Ninnekah in Grady County, population 775. Post office was established here in Indian Territory in 1892. The name is from the Choctaw word Ninnik, meaning night or darkness. When it was founded, it was located in Pickens County, Chickasaw Nation, just like Rush Springs, our previous town. The Chicago, Rock Island, Pacific Railway reached through here in 1892. Between 1909 to 1919, they estimated about 400 people that lived here. And then as you look at the census numbers, kind of spotty with some of the numbers, but certainly larger back in the day has lost its population somewhat, and especially like our last town of Rush Springs, lost quite a bit in the last census of 2020. Continuing in Grady County, this is Pocasset, population 183. So in 1892, that railroad, the Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific Railroad, came through this area, just like it did in these other towns. You'll hear that a lot in these Highway 81 towns. So this was actually just referred to as siding number 1 at that time. So in 1901, they made plans for a town, and they auctioned some town lots, and a post office was designated in this area. The name referred to an American Indian village in Massachusetts and was probably suggested by a railroad official. Pocasset served area farmers and ranchers, and by 1910, it was estimated the population was 260. In 1965, the school consolidated with the nearby town of Amber, creating the Grady County School District. In 1998, the town was officially incorporated, so it took quite a while to be incorporated here. Population has been small. It looks like it's maybe a little smaller than it was back in 1910, but holding steady there at 183. One last town here in Grady County is Minco, population 1,500. It's one of the oldest continuously existing towns in western Oklahoma. Pretty cool. Present-day Minco began as a settlement named Silver City on the Chisholm Trail. The community was initially a collection of tents housing Caddo, Wichita, Kiowa, and Comanche tribesmen. It's approximately 7 miles east of this present-day location. After the Rock Island extended its railroad track to the Chisholm Trail, the town physically moved to the end of the rail line and renamed itself Minco. It's believed to be named after the great Chickasaw chief and warrior Itawamba Minco. Post office opened in 1890. Its early stages was a very busy town because of its location at the end of the railroad, and that lasted for about 2 years. The Rock Island Railroad's original purpose in extending the railroad to Minco was to provide a gateway for the shipping of cattle from the grazing lands of the Chickasaw Nation just to the south of the town. In 1901, the Chickasaw Nation's land was open to white settlement, making Minco a railroad hub for the entire region. So population generally grew throughout its entire lifespan here at the town. In 2000, it peaked at 1,672, dropped off a little bit down to 1,500 in 2020. Now over to Canadian County. This is Union City, population 1,794. Post office of Union was established in 1889. In November the following year, the Union Town site plat was filed, initiating the community that has become known as Union City. A boom for the new town site was the presence of the main north-south line of the Chicago, Kansas, and Nebraska Railway, which arrived in 1890. Agriculture quickly formed the basis of Union City's economy. Within 4 years, the town boasted 35 businesses, including 3 grain elevators and a farm machinery dealership. Population was estimated around 100 around the year 1900. The population there around 1950 in our first census results is right around 300 and has continued to grow. Actually, in 2020 was its largest it's ever been. This is Okarche, population 1,141. It's on the Canadian and Kingfisher County line. It's located on land that before 1830 was within the historic area of the Wichita people. The location was in territory assigned to the Creek and Seminole people when removal of tribes from the southeast United States began in 1830. From 1867 to 1884, cattle were driven through the area in the Chisholm Trail, just like a lot of these other towns we've mentioned. Railroad came through in 1890 and a depot was built. Okarche was platted at that time and a post office was established in June of 1890. Cheyenne and Arapaho lands were opened to settlement by land run in 1892. The town was incorporated in 1905. The name Okarche is a combination of Oklahoma, Arapaho, and Cheyenne. Okarche. Population has risen for the most part, hit 1,000 for the first time in 1980, continued to go up. It peaked in 2010 and went down slightly in 2020. This is Kingfisher, population 4,903. It is the county seat of Kingfisher County, appropriately named. Came into existence in 1889 when the government opened this land by a land run. Town was named for an early resident who several landmarks were named for a man named Kingfisher. King was his first name, Fisher was his last name. The bill that opened the Oklahoma Territory to non-Indian settlement limited the size of town sites to 320 acres. So settlers in the area formed two communities. There was Kingfisher City on the north and Lisbon on the south. Then those two merged in the 1890s into just Kingfisher. Railroads obviously helped with Kingfisher's growth. Chicago, Kansas, and Nebraska Railway was built through the area, and the first train arrived in 1889. Sam Walton and James Bud Walton were founders of Walmart. They're both from Kingfisher. That's where their family was raised. Population has gone up throughout the years. The most recent one was its largest at 4,903. So looks like things are on the up and up in Kingfisher. Last town here in Kingfisher County is Dover, population 400. The area around Dover was ideal for cattle grazing. By 1884, all the land had been leased to cattlemen. Land was open for settlement by the land run in 1889, and the trading post was well placed to benefit from the farmers that settled nearby. Rock Island built the track through the Traders Ranch and constructed a bridge across the Cimarron River in 1889. Settlement called Red Wing grew up around the ranch. In 1890, post office was established, renaming the community Dover after a city in England. By 1893, the community had about 150 residents, and it grew to about 500 in 1910. In 1999, a tornado destroyed about a third of the town. Only have population figures since 1980, and that was when the town was its largest. Dropped a little bit and then went back up, so kind of settled there in the middle at 400. Our final town is Waukomis, population 1,349. We're in now Garfield County. Waukomis was founded soon after the Cherokee Outlet opened to settlement in 1893. Several explanations offered for the meaning of the name, the most interesting being that railroad officials had to, quote, walk home from there to Enos. Incorporation came in 1899. By 1900, about 700 people lived in town. A 1902 gazetteer credited the town with a bank, 2 flour mill, grain elevator companies, 2 restaurants, a blacksmith, and a harness dealer. However, a fire in 1903 destroyed about half of the buildings. Population went down a little bit from the early days. You can see in 1940 how it went all the way down to 397, and since then it has picked back up. It did peak in 1980, went up from a lot from 1970 to 1980, and has settled in at 1,349. And back here at home, did you keep track of your favorite ones on this trip? That was a pretty interesting trip on Highway 81. A lot of really historic places. Obviously, the Chisholm Trail, that railroad being built through there. A lot of old Indian Territory areas that were open because of the land run or the Cherokee Outlet, things like that. So pretty interesting historical area all the way from the south up to the north. So as I was looking at it for my rankings, you know, number one, I went with Kingfisher. That seemed like an obvious one. It was the largest town on this list and had just a great downtown. Definitely a place I want to go back to and explore some more in the future. So Kingfisher was my number one. My second one wasn't necessarily one of the bigger ones, but the last one of Waukomis. I thought that downtown was very interesting. Some great old buildings, even though maybe not as many businesses as some of the other places. I really enjoyed checking it out. They had a nice mural there as well. My third one, I'm going to go back to where we started at Marlow. And they had a great big mural on the side of one of the downtown buildings there. And just that was a good way to start the day in Marlow. So what was your favorite? List them in the comments. Here's my entire list of 1 through 10, my top to the bottom. So hopefully you enjoyed this trip. I know I did. And next time I'll see you down a back road. Hey, thanks for making it all the way to the end of that video. And since you're here, let me tell you a little bit more about the extras on the channel. One of the first things you can do is become a member. There are 3 levels of support. There's supporter, producer, and executive producer levels. All 3 have different levels of fun incentives and perks. If you haven't done so, please check out travelwiththewiseguy.com. There are lots of extras on there to explore. One of them is merchandise. We have Travel with the Wise Guy coffee mugs, Death Go Round t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and all sorts of fun things to show your support of this channel. Also on the website is a custom Google map. I've dropped pins in every place I've visited and linked the episode to each location. This seems to be a very popular feature for many of you. Also, sign up for my free newsletter that goes out about once a month. There are all sorts of links and tidbits on this page, old videos, podcasts, and just about everything I can think of I throw on the website. Get all that information on travelwiththewiseguy.com. Now for the real reason you're here, the outtakes. I hope Lexi won. Little bonus footage here. I'm in Chickasaw, which is too big of a town for our purposes. And they got this cool depot area down here, but I drove by and I saw this. What the heck? So this is here because of the movie A Christmas Story, and I guess the Chickasaw Nation here has their own take on it. Very, very strange and interesting. I'm sure a few of you wanted to see the Rock Island Depot here. Very cool. Besides the leg, they got an old jail here. I'm guessing this is the jail. Whoa.